Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas. Lots of colors are in the air, and they say love is in the air, and how love is integral part of our lives right from the beginning, and especially there comes a point when one wants to start life with someone special, and that moment, how it unfolded for the couple who is going to be joining us, we'll talk to them about it. Mitesh Kapadia and Shakti Sharma ji both are joining me from a very, very far distance. So, namaste, welcome.
Namaste.
Namaste, Ashok ji and our viewers.
And I would also mention for our viewers that Mitesh ji and Shakti ji have formed a company called Spiritual Alignment. So, how that came about, we'll reach there. But before that, how you guys reached each other? And as they always say, ladies first. So, Shakti ji, your first meeting with Mitesh ji.
Yeah, before even the first meeting started, Ashok ji, I was living the Indian American dream at that point. This is back in 2010. And at that point, I was working at JP Morgan Chase. I was finishing up my business school. I had done masters already. I was working long hours. I had no, like typical immigrants, I did not have any family support or a network of people who would introduce me to different people. I resorted to the typical shadi.com route, and I saw this profile. My parents from India and I used to kind of team together, and we came across Mitesh's profile, and the way Mitesh described what his ideal partner is like just resonated with me so much, and it just felt like in his words, in this like world of profiles and glamour and people writing what, like people marketing themselves, I felt like there was this like one profile where he really poured his heart into very truthfully what he's really looking for, and that clarity to me was very appealing. So the first time we met was in Philadelphia in a cafe, and this is like typical Shakti coming in, flustered with how do I parallel park here? This is Philadelphia, so there's no like parking garage or anything in South Philly. And I'm like, okay, I could use some help. And Mitesh came and helped me with parking. And we were going to meet for what, 30 minutes, an hour. We ended up talking for 4 hours. And that's where our connection really started.
I'm very happy to hear that. And there are many questions which some of our viewers, and especially those young men who are trying their luck on different these internet sites, you can give some tips, Miteji, on the way you crafted your profile. So she was very impressed, and you won the battle right there through your your writing skills. So let us go there, and then towards the other references.
Yeah, before winning that battle, there were so many other battles that left me disappointed with just meeting people and not finding the right person, right match. And so on that beginning of the new year, so I not exactly, but I think like 2 weeks after the new year of that year, 2010, I had written a who my ideal partner is. And in my profile, I included that. So my ideal partner would, have this type of sense of humor or have, this type of personality. And I really just described it as if I was speaking to that person in my writing. And so just having that clarity, because I knew after having so many experiences of just meeting people and not making it work out and it's just disappointment for so many years. And of course you have the pressure from everybody in the whole world telling, okay, Mitesh, when is your wedding happening? When are you getting to get married? When are you going to have this? So the pressure was building at that point, certainly. And this was one way that really helped me to build that level of clarity of, I am looking, and I started the sentence with this, the paragraph, I am looking for this person. You are so and so. And I wish I had the exact wording, but it's, you are a person with a warm heart. I'm looking for you as somebody who connects with your divinity inside of you. And there was something more to that, but that was the extent.
So I think I will not bother you to think exact words, but we got the spirit, and that spirit which has led you to spiritual alignment. We'll reach there. But Shakti ji, if you care, care to share any remnants of that meeting which got stretched, you decided to meet for little less number of duration than what it ended up. So, as we generally say that it clicked. So, what clicked?
Yeah, and before I go into what click, I also want to kind of tie back to what Mitesh was saying. Very coincidentally, so we met in February. February, I think 10th was the day when we first met. And Ashokji, that year, January some 20th or something, one of my friends came back from Bangladesh, and he got engaged. And he gave me all these tips of how to like write down what you're looking for. So me being the geek, like all this like Excel spreadsheet junkie. Well, Mitesh wrote his like poetry. I wrote down. I created a model of different things that I care about, and I have this like rating system. The reason I'm bringing that up is it was such a coincidence that we both were clarifying what we value, and we were both very clear going into it what we're looking for, and I think that really helped us uh, to not take as much time and have that clarity. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that exercise in itself just called us each other much quickly rather than going with a general picture and saying, okay, let's see where this goes, type of thing.
So I
Right.
think I'm very impressed when you say that you were clear about what you were looking for. So want to sort of share some details about that aspect because this being clear and being able to articulate what kind of person you would like to have for your life companion, it requires a lot of introspection, and
Yep.
um, so maybe your inner journey to reach to that draft may also help someone.
Yeah, so there's that inner journey, Ashokji, that I think, Mitesh, I feel like you have some things to share there. Would you like to get us started?
Yeah, so the inner journey really happened from, just as I was sharing earlier, like what didn't work out, what was not what I wanted. And that's the process I think we all go through in life, is that we see and experience all the things that we don't like and we don't want. And then it makes us much more clear on what is it that we do want. And at some point, it's like the tipping point where it's enough that pushes us into, like, this is really what I want. So we start from here, and then it's like, this is what I want. And at that point, then things are very laser focused and less
So
time
what?
is.
So what you said, actually, you didn't say anything. You didn't say anything. You maybe you did say, but it didn't make much sense when you say that you were clear as to what you don't want and how you became clear. And kindly say any experience which led you to reach to the realization this is something that I don't want. Like in our philosophy, we said neti neti. This is not true. This is not. So, any even if something which you may not always like to remember, tell us what what helped you in reaching clarity. As sometimes we say that when you fail or you falter or you have some experiences which are not pleasing at that moment, but they kind of help you shape up a kind of a clear uh, uh,
Hmm.
image of the person that you would like for your life partner.
Yeah. So one example I have is that, on paper, at this time, a lot of people were being introduced to through family and things like that, right, in our culture. And so one person which I connected with, she was perfect on paper, like everything would match the criteria. But when we actually met in person, the connection just didn't feel good. So ultimately, this gets you to the door, the clarity, but then the feeling, like what specifically came out for me in that interaction was that this person was wonderful, but we just couldn't communicate.
Yeah.
Our communication didn't go deeper, and so I
I,
wanted somebody who can really communicate with and
Yeah,
connect with.
I'm tempted to share my side also briefly. So, and these are not white mustache. I just colored them so that you look young. But so long, long ago when I was a student, and I also felt that. I mean, I started looking at some girls that maybe she could be the potential one, etc. So, she was good looking. But when we started talking, just in second meeting or so, she started sharing or asking me questions about my financial background, my family property, etc. So I felt her prime focus was more materialistic sort of approach. So I kind of so similarly we have our preferences. Some people may like those kind of persons who are more interested in financial side of life. But
Yeah.
anyway, so that was my. So now back to
Yeah,
you, Shakti.
and I just want to add that Mitesh had a lot of experience. Like I feel like meeting people, and understanding where this can go. With me, I didn't. I was just living such a busy life. I did have one experience. I did have one relationship that brought a lot of pain, and I was like, this is enough for me to understand about me. And what it boiled down to is in that helped me in like creating that clarity was how at the end of the day how do I want to be loved, really, like how do I feel loved? And if I know how I feel loved, it's rather easier for me to be clear on how I want to be loved by my partner. But if I don't know how I feel loved and I only have that void in my heart that I don't have love, then we're just perpetuating that energy of not love. So it just needed from my end a shift into, well, when I am by myself, how do I feel loved? What things I do for me? How do I want to be witnessed, noticed by masculine energy so that I feel like I have space to grow, space to be me? So that was part of my clarity.
I appreciate bringing that up, and uh, I'll request both of you to share your call it understanding or definition based on your experiences of what is it that you would call as love. And if I may also add, when you are meeting someone who is stranger and the way you guys met, initially there are many steps that you need to sort of move ahead with. Then probably this this point comes which we refer to as love, because you are kind of judging each other, or if not judging, at least you're trying to understand where he or where she's coming from, etc. So as I conclude my question, they say love at first sight. Is that true, or that is something only uh, to to say that love at first sight? Mitesh, your take first on what is love.
Yeah. So for me, obviously we met through the internet. So this was having seen a profile like, yes, this is a person I find attractive. This is somebody that I could see that from that angle is works for me. And then when we first met, it was just a little bit of a story here is that when I first met Shakti, I didn't have my career was not really kicking off. I was, you know, had just volunteered, uh, spent some time volunteering, and I had a break between what I was doing professionally. And so I really didn't have much going on in that field. And I when I first met, it was like we saw each other beyond what we are doing, beyond what we are, have as our on our resume, and that's what pushed it further for me, especially because, and that's why, you asked earlier, like, how did it 30 minutes go from 30 to 4 hours? Is because we just connected through conversation. We connected from what I like to say dot to dot, from heart to heart, that made it so much more enriching than saying, okay, do you meet this checkbox or do you meet this other checkbox or any of those things?
Shakti, you're uh,
And this is, I think, what we mean by, is this looking good on the paper, or is that really resonating with your heart? When you strip away all that you have, all that you have achieved, all that you're going to achieve, or visions that you have, when you strip away all of that, and when you just see that one heart and you see the other heart, can you appreciate a human being? And if you can, it's all possible for the love to flourish. I mean, we all are so naturally loving people as human beings. When we don't have to prove ourselves, when there's no demand to perform, when there's no judgment, we all like to love. We love all like to like have conversations, get to know each other. And I think that's a very important point that really help us to be clear. And for me, on my end, meeting with Mitesh for the first time, it really felt like, so I'm a very empathic, sensitive person, and it just felt like Mitesh had the depth to see me for my heart beyond, again, all the other stuff that we tend to kind of engage in trying to look good in the world. But we don't need to have any of that extras when there's so much purity, beauty in our heart that can be witnessed by a man. And that was very liberating, Ashokji. I never had met any man in my life that was so open to appreciating the heart, the feminine in this way. So on paper, it was like polar opposites coming together. Mitesh is like not sure where he's going with his career, spending all his time volunteering, and hear me living the executive American Indian immigrant dream. I'm like going to top business school, like my resume is everything. And coming together was really a journey of this whole lifetime growth, to be honest.
so listening to both of you looks like we can talk for hours, and yet we won't be able to gauge the extent and vastness of love that you both have for each other. So let's look at it from the point of view we learn from each other as we live together. Um, I I think when you say that we all no judgment, etc., that is not the case with many people. People do judge. Even wives judge too much. Husbands judge too much. that that is common feature. So you guys are blessed, I would say, and you are helping others also through your spiritual alignment. But very briefly, Miteshi, what would you say you learned by being with Shakti ji?
Hmm. So just quickly, there were judgment, like in a sense, like silly judgments where, I had proposed to meet at a coffee shop at our first time, and Shakti was thinking to herself, like, why are you meeting can't we meet for dinner?
So I don't drink coffee. I don't drink tea.
Neither
He
did I.
doesn't drink coffee, tea, and I don't understand why we're meeting at a coffee shop
Yeah.
when we can have a meal together.
Yeah, and so it was, for me, I just wanted to have a quick out. Like, if this didn't work out, I wanted to make sure that I can, leave in 30 minutes. In 30 minutes. Obviously, it did work out, and both of us don't even drink coffee. So we actually, Shakti was very kind. She saw some coconut water, and so she said, "Would you like to share some coconut water?" And we had coconut water at a coffee shop as our first date, and so what I learned from her is that there's no limit to her heart. There's no limit to our hearts. And she's been a big teacher for me on that, around just the purity of how she goes out and does action in the world. For me, there was this element of conditional action where I take an action in the world, but I'm also looking for something to in return for that. And for her, it was like, just do it because the good of your heart, do it because you feel like you want to do it. And that was refreshing for me. That was even, along with that coconut water, how refreshing that was, just seeing that was, added to that refreshing element.
Shakti, compliments for you are coming in abundance. You may notice it now or later, or you already know it, coming from the gentleman sitting near you. But what are your compliments or observations, or as I phrased it, what did you learn by being with him?
I think Mitesh is what I found that Mitesh is not, it's not a quality, it's not a virtue. It's just this like grand presence he holds. And that grand presence is so powerful and so safe. It just creates this level of safety that I immediately reverted to my child self. I immediately connected to my innocence. I immediately connected to the goodness that I always believed in. And like this part of my child part of me, the heart part of me just came so alive and so amplified being with a man with who I know I just can feel so safe in the world, like where I don't have to perform, and there's like this godly level of acceptance he has, this like godly level of patience he holds, and that just helped me really amplify more into what was true to me. I always grew up as this little kid who was super sensitive. I cared so deeply about animals. You know, growing up in India, people were abusive to cows, people were abusive to dogs. I would literally watch that and cry for hours, just washing away, any judgment, washing away these ill actions, and just standing up in purity, standing up for causes that I believed in, standing up for saying the right thing, doing the right thing. And it just felt like I could do that so much more in the presence of this man.
Wow. The way you described it, I think a lot of people would like to queue up to learn from Mitesh. Where did you get that sort of inner clarity and vastness, which gives a sense of having a protective environment and a kind of fullness that Shakti described? So, why don't I request you to share who would you give credit for this kind of approach towards life?
For me, everybody was my teacher, really. And not that I feel like I've mastered anything in this in that regard, but I just feel like, as I grew up, there was a level of feeling judged myself. Being a new immigrant in this country and growing up in a place where, I was very different from most of the folks that I grew up in Long Island, and you know, having experienced just that uh, kind of like prejudice and that made me feel like that acceptance. There was some sort of like I can accept you, can you accept me, like that type of thing. And that's where I felt like I helped to build that, and it's still a work in progress, but ultimately, yeah, just seeing people as whole and complete is something that I like to abide by, because nobody has it figured out 100%. And even we have our own flaws, we have our own battles, we have our at time to time they come up with any relationship, but we learn from them and we learn to accept ourselves in that process as well.
Wonderful. It is important that we learn to accept ourselves and we learn others as they are, and then together we grow. And as we are growing in our understanding of love with Mitesh and Shakti ji, we'll continue this conversation, and we'll talk about understanding and misunderstanding that many couples find on the path of their togetherness, and how to deal with them. We'll learn from this, if I say, enlightened couple.